Welcome to our channel.
Have you ever wondered that your dwindling appetite as you age isn't actually a sign that your body needs less fuel, but rather a deceptive signal masking a metabolic crisis? Have you ever wondered that your lack of hunger isn't a sign of efficiency, but a breakdown in your body's metabolic communication lines that is actively promoting fat storage? It feels like a cruel joke. You turn 50, you stop feeling hungry, you eat like a bird, and yet the scale keeps creeping up, specifically around the midsection. To help us understand why biology seems to be betraying us, we are joined by Dr. Hepa, a metabolic specialist who views the human body quite differently than most.
It is a pleasure to be here. To understand this paradox, you have to stop thinking of your body as a simple machine and start thinking of it as a Fortune 500 company. I call this the metabolic corporation. In this company, your liver is the CEO. For decades, the CEO ran a tight ship, managing a massive workforce of muscle cells and efficiently processing energy shipments. But as the corporation ages, the workforce goes on strike, communication lines get cut, and the CEO starts making panic decisions that result in what you see as stubborn belly fat.
That is a fascinating analogy, Dr. Hepa. I think most of us assume that if we aren't hungry, we simply don't need the calories. But you're suggesting that the lack of hunger is actually a malfunction in the system. Let's start with the workforce you mentioned. What happens to our employees as we get older?
The muscle-fat paradox, scientifically known as sarcopenia. In our metabolic corporation, your skeletal muscle fibers are the factory workers. They are the ones burning through the budget, your calories, day in and day out, even when you are sleeping. However, starting as early as age 30 and accelerating rapidly after 50, the corporation begins aggressive downsizing. We lose about 3 to 8.
So, because we have fewer workers on the factory floor, the company's expenses are lower. That makes sense. But if expenses are lower and we are eating less because our appetite has dropped, shouldn't it balance out? Why does the fat storage increase?
That is the critical question. The problem is that the drop in your metabolic burn rate usually outpaces the drop in your appetite. Even if you eat 20% less, if your workforce has shrunk by 30%, you are still in a surplus. The CEO, your liver, receives these energy shipments from your diet. He looks at the factory floor and sees empty workstations. The muscles aren't taking up the glucose. The liver cannot just throw the energy away, so it sends it to long-term storage. In the human body, storage is white adipose tissue, specifically visceral fat. This is why you can be under-eating by your historical standards, yet still overeating relative to your current metabolic reality.
That explains the weight gain, but I want to go deeper into the appetite side of things. I've heard the term anorexia of aging. It sounds drastic, but many listeners mention they legitimately forget to eat. Is this the liver telling us to stop?
It is not the liver telling you to stop. It is the brain failing to listen. We call this hormonal ghosting. In a healthy body, you have two primary messengers: ghrelin, which rings the phone to say, "I'm hungry," and leptin, which rings to say, "I'm full." As we age, the sensitivity to these hormones degrades. The stomach might release ghrelin, but the hypothalamus in the brain, the receptionist, doesn't pick up the phone. The signal is fuzzy. You don't get that sharp hunger pang anymore. You just feel a general sense of fullness or neutrality. This leads to erratic eating patterns, skipping protein, and snacking on easy-to-digest carbohydrates, which exacerbates the insulin spike.
So we have a workforce that has been fired and a communication system that has gone offline. It sounds like the CEO is operating in the dark. How does this impact the quality of the tissue we do have? Is the remaining muscle at least doing its job?
Unfortunately, no. This introduces the concept of anabolic resistance. Even the workers who remain on the factory floor have become lazy and entitled. In your 20s, if you ate a steak, the amino acids would rush into the muscle and protein synthesis would ignite immediately. The workers would start building. In your 60s, you can eat that same steak, but the muscle cells barely react. They have become resistant to the anabolic signal of protein. You literally need almost double the protein intake per meal in older age just to trigger the same muscle-building response that a small snack would trigger in a teenager.
That is terrifying. We are eating less, but the food we do eat isn't triggering the repair process. It sounds like the body is shifting from a growth phase into a preservation phase, but doing it very poorly.
Precisely. And here is where the CEO, the liver, makes its fatal error. When the muscles, the workers, stop accepting glucose because of insulin resistance and anabolic resistance, the liver becomes overwhelmed with energy substrates. It tries to convert this excess energy into triglycerides. But because the subcutaneous fat depots, the safe storage under your skin, often become dysfunctional with age, the liver starts storing fat in dangerous places. Inside the muscle, steatosis, around the heart, and most critically, inside the liver itself. This is the transition to metabolic syndrome, all happening while the person claims they hardly eat anything.
It seems like a vicious cycle. The less muscle we have, the less we burn. The less we burn, the more fat we store. The more fat we store, the more inflammation we create, which probably damages the muscle further. Is that accurate?
You have hit the nail on the head. Inflammation is the corporate sabotage. As visceral fat grows, it releases pro-inflammatory cytokines. Think of these as corporate spies that sabotage the machinery. These cytokines attack the remaining muscle tissue and interfere with insulin signaling even further. It creates a feedback loop where the body is chemically screaming that it is starving and overfed at the exact same time. The anorexia of aging masks the fact that the body is structurally malnourished but calorically toxic.
Okay, Dr. Hepa, this paints a very bleak picture for anyone over 50, but surely we can restructure the corporation. We can't just fire the CEO, but can we rehire the workers? Can we fix the communication lines?
Absolutely. The corporation can be saved, but it requires a hostile takeover of your current habits. The first step is addressing anabolic resistance. Because your muscles are deaf to protein signals, you must shout louder. This means increasing protein intake, specifically leucine-rich proteins, to at least 30 to 40 grams per meal. You cannot graze on toast and coffee. You must spike the amino acid levels in your blood high enough to force the muscle machinery to turn on.
So we need to flood the system with the right materials. But what about the workers themselves? If they are retiring, how do we get them back on the line?
We must force them out of retirement through resistance training. And I don't mean light walking. Walking is transportation. It is not a stimulus for the aging corporation. You need mechanical tension. When you lift weights that are heavy for you, you send a survival signal to the CEO. You are telling the body, we need these workers to survive. This mechanical stress overrides hormonal resistance. It forces the muscles to absorb glucose without needing as much insulin. It is the only way to reopen the factory floor.
Walking is transportation. Lifting is stimulation. What about the ghosting issue? If our hunger signals are broken, how do we know when to eat?
You stop relying on intuition. Intuitive eating works when your hormones are balanced. When you are aging and your signaling is broken, intuitive eating leads to malnutrition and muscle loss. You must move to scheduled nutrition. You eat your high-protein meals at specific times, regardless of whether you feel a strong urge. You are manually managing the corporation because the automated systems have failed. By prioritizing protein first, you ensure the liver has the materials for repair, rather than just energy for storage.
This is a complete paradigm shift. Instead of listening to our body, which might be lying to us, we need to take executive control. Dr. Hepa, if someone starts this today, heavy lifting, high protein, scheduled meals, how long until the CEO starts cooperating again?
The beauty of the metabolic corporation is its adaptability. Within 72 hours of proper protein spacing and resistant stimulus, insulin sensitivity begins to improve. The liver stops panic storing fat because the muscles scream, "Send the energy here." It takes time to rebuild the workforce. Muscle growth is slow, but the metabolic signaling can be corrected relatively quickly. You will find that your appetite returns, not as a craving for junk, but as a genuine physiological demand for fuel. That is when you know the communication lines are fixed.
It's incredibly empowering to know that while biology might be biased against us as we age, we have the tools to override it. It's not about eating less, it's about demanding more from our tissues.
Correct. Do not accept the slow metabolism as a fate. It is a symptom of a shrinking workforce. Rehire the workers, manage the CEO, and you can keep the corporation profitable well into your 80s and 90s.
Thank you, Dr. Hepa. This has been a true deep dive into the mechanics of aging. For our listeners, remember, your lack of hunger is a lie, and your belly fat is just a mismanaged resource.
Do not let your liver retire. Give it a job to do. Keep moving.
We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Have you noticed this appetite-weight paradox in your own life? What changes are you making?
I will be looking out for questions regarding protein timing specifically. It is the most common stumbling block.
We will link Dr. Hepa's recommended protein guidelines in the description below.
And perhaps a guide on safe resistance training for beginners.
Absolutely. It's time to take the CEO chair back.
Indeed, the factory does not close until you say it closes.
If you found value in this deep dive, please like and subscribe for more metabolic mastery.
Stay anabolic, everyone.
See you in the next episode.
Welcome to our channel.
Wait, we are starting again? Just kidding. Goodbye.
Thanks for watching.